Well, I woke up at about 4 in the morning with super heavy rain, and looks like I'm gonna get a bit of rain today, but it's holding off for a minute. After it stopped raining for a bit, I went outside and saw the sky full of stars, and looks like there's a bit of gap in the weather. The sun's even coming out a little bit. It's trying, so let's get moving. Good morning from the Oykel River. I spent the night in a fantastic little log cabin out in the middle of some forestry lands. It did not have indoor plumbing, but I won't hold that against it. Today's task is to follow the NC500 up the west coast of Scotland to the town of Tongue. It is only around 120 miles, so there is plenty of time to stop and see things, something that I didn't get to do much of yesterday.
Oh, hey, cows. Good morning.
The River Oykel, it turns out, is one of the most famous salmon fisheries in the Highlands, and the hotel where I had dinner last night is the place to stay if you're fishing, which explains all the photos of fish on the walls. The river is down in the valley on the right of the screen. On the right, you can just make out the old bridge that was built in 1823 to carry the road from Bonar Bridge to Lochinver. And here's the hotel from last night where I had an incredible Lancashire hot pot. As you can see, the weather is changing constantly. Not far back, I hit a deep puddle, and the water splashed up between my left boot and pants and fell down into my boot. The problem with waterproof boots is that they keep the water in just as well as they keep it out. But I'm not going to let a little trench foot get in the way of enjoying these beautiful roads through the Highlands. I am approaching Loch Assynt, and the area here has had human occupation for at least the last 3,000 years. There is a burial cairn from 2000 BC somewhere in the hills here. Calda House, a 14-bedroom mansion, was built in 1726 by Kenneth Mackenzie II for his wife Frances, who thought living in the castle up the road was just a little bit too rugged. 10 years later, they were financially ruined and the area was purchased by the Earl of Sutherland. Mackenzie supporters vowed that no Sutherland should live there and looted and burned the house in 1737. They say you get 4 seasons in a day here, and that seems pretty accurate. It's just 9 in the morning and I've already had rain, bright sunshine, and now hail. Who needs an umbrella when you have a waterproof motorcycle suit and a helmet? Anyway, here is Ardvreck Castle, which was built in the second half of the 15th century by the MacLeod clan, and expanded about 100 years later. The castle sits on what would be an island, but for a narrow sandy causeway in the middle of Loch Assynt. As I pass through the remains of the outer castle wall, it is clear that only the south and east-facing walls are still intact. Here is what the castle would have looked like around the year 1600. You can still see the basic shape of the main tower, and the cellars are still visible.
Super cool.
Though iron gates keep you from entering.
Of course, there's a ton of spam in there.
In 1672, the Mackenzies of Wester Ross laid siege to the castle, and after 14 days, they were the new owners. Another 100 years went by before the castle was struck by lightning and destroyed. This tower once housed the stairs to get from the cellar up to the second floor, as well as some rooms on the second and third floor. I've said it before, but I love that these ruins are open to explore. It's fun to wander around and imagine what it might have been like to live here 400 years ago. They certainly had lovely views out the windows. And if today is any indication, plenty of wind. By the time I was ready to get moving again, it was a beautiful day. It is time to find some breakfast and coffee, and Lochinver is only 11 miles up the road. 11 miles of beautiful winding road that follows the edge of Loch Assynt and the river that runs to the sea. Coming over a crest, I spot a van in the middle of an overtake. It seems everyone's anxious to get around those caravans. I had a cappuccino and black pudding roll at a lovely little cafe as I watched the skies change from sun to rain to sun again. I even got a rainbow. And the cycle continued. It started to rain again as soon as I got on the bike. I had heard that Melvich Beach was particularly nice by several people, so I ventured down the windy single-lane road, only to find the parking area closed. With nowhere to put the bike, and others in cars with the same idea piling up at the dead end, I thought it best to retreat. There are bound to be more lovely beaches up the coast. And sure enough, I found a beach, with a right whale jawbone in the parking lot. This is Clachtal Beach, a beautiful white sand beach nestled into a rugged, rocky coastline. Clachtal is an old crofting and fishing village, and on the headland is a bothy built in 1846 that was occupied by fishermen when the salmon were migrating from February to August. It started spitting rain again, so I continued on my way. Speed bumps are always amusing when you're on an adventure bike. The northwest of Scotland is really something. Rugged coastline with narrow, windy roads and the occasional white sandy beach tucked in. Even when it's raining, it's still a delightful place to ride a motorbike.
Bye.
So I mentioned earlier that I had gotten a rude splash of water into my left boot, so I found a little shop called Craft on Croft and bought myself a pair of warm wool socks. They have all kinds of crafts from local artists there, and it is well worth the visit. The woman running the shop was very kind and wonderful to talk to. The driveway was a great little 2-track, and there are the remains of an old crofting hut. She even had a small flock of sheep. Coming down from the store is a lovely view of Loch Drumbeg, which has some fluffy little islands floating in it. Oh look, a piggy sign. This is perfect for the channel.
Oh no. Oh, that pig has been defaced.
Perhaps I'll look for a more suitable one. Just a few BMWs traveling through the beautiful hamlet of Ned. I love seeing these old wooden boats just tied up on the beach. These little single-lane roads through the middle of nowhere are my favorite parts of the NC500. They require your full attention, and you become completely immersed in the experience. The two-lane stretches, while often just as beautiful, don't feel as special. I understand that it's the only road here, so the two lanes are kind of necessary to deal with the summer traffic. So enjoy the tiny roads when you get them. It is so satisfying when these passing points work out so that neither vehicle has to slow down much. And when you get two in a row, that's just icing on the cake. I'm here up on the very north coast of Scotland, and I've stopped here before, but it was worth another visit. Welcome to Smoo Cave. Smoo Cave is a limestone sea cave that has also been shaped by a river running through it. This cave was visited in the early 1800s by Sir Walter Scott, who also visited Smoo Cave on the Isle of Skye, which I saw a few days prior to this one. It is said that Donald Mac Murachie, a henchman of the Clan Mackay, murdered 19 people and disposed of their bodies in this waterfall, believing the devil lived below and the bodies would not be discovered. Clearly this was not the case, as we are still hearing tales of his misdeeds over 300 years later. The waterfall was especially fierce today, as there had been quite a bit of rain. The last time I visited it was much calmer, and there were even boat tours of this chamber available, but not today. I took a walk up the side of the channel to get a look at the cave from the outside, before returning to the parking lot where I discovered that my bike had made friends. This little stretch of coastline is full of beautiful sandy beaches. This beach is unreal. I suppose if the climate had been a bit more hospitable, this would have been turned into seaside resorts long ago, and I am grateful that is not the case. It's so cool to wander around these pristine, relatively undeveloped shores. You get stretches where you feel like you're the only one there. Well, until this happens. I suppose this is the reason that many of the roads have been upgraded to two lanes. The road hugs the edge of Loch Erbal, another sea loch that was used frequently by the Navy during World War II. The soldiers stationed here nicknamed it Loch Horrible due to its propensity for bad weather. You know, they might have been onto something. But before long, the sun was poking its head out again, and you know what that means. A hunt for a pot of gold! Oh, sorry, wrong country. Just up the road is another of those nearly an island peninsulas. There were some large lime kilns built here around 1870, and this was the landing site of the ferry that crossed the loch before the road was built in 1890. Back on the road, I found myself at the back of a large group of bikes, and they would be my guide for the next 15 miles. Over the bridge at Hope, then across the vast, desolate bog known as Amoy, meaning the moss. And across the Tongue Causeway, where I stopped to have a better look at the mountains to the south. Don't let the stone walls fool you. This causeway has been around since 1971. Before that, you had to drive all the way around the Kyle of Tongue. I found my way to the Bothy Bed and Breakfast in Tongue, which was definitely the nicest accommodation of the trip. The dining room had a view of Castle Varrich off in the distance. And after a quick wander around town to get some dinner, I was off to go find the castle on foot, past a view of Ben Loyal and across a small river. This totally tracks with the day. Looks beautiful, and then surprise rain! So I've climbed up to Castle Varrich, and it's raining again, and there's a bit of hail too. Oh boy. Not much is known about this castle, but it was likely an early Mackay stronghold before the Tongue House was built. It has been stabilized, and a metal staircase gives a view over the top of the walls. The changeable conditions delivered yet another rainbow, and I caught the beginning of the sunset before retreating back to the B&B for the evening. If you're still here, thanks for coming along. And if you enjoyed this, share it with a friend, and stay tuned for a trip down one of the loneliest little roads in Scotland.